Shang-Chi is an important movie. You have to watch it. This was straight film Hindi, marra film Hindi. The positive bit is that this movie is now giving us an indication, first of all, by establishing connection with what has happened in the last 10 years, that Shang-Chi is going to be more of a serious character when it comes to the Avengers for the next 10 years. Hi everyone, and welcome to my review, which is going to be having major spoilers for the movie Shang-Chi. So if you haven't watched the movie, please stop. Having said that, it has a good amount of action, and the casting, the sense of casting for Marvel, I'm going to be getting into that. So let's just start out with a review where I'm going to be sharing a positive as well as a negative along the way. First thing is that the casting for all of the characters, with the exception of Aquafina, I like her as a comedian. She's a very good actress. Her timing is really good. But the thing was that she didn't deserve that much of a exposure within the movie, knowing that she is being a person who doesn't have much of a background in martial arts and who is not that much connected to Shang-Chi, and then at the same time, having her doing some major stuff towards the end was really a shocking thing for me. Why is that? Because as we have seen that Shang-Chi's mother belongs to a mystical village or a city or a town, much like Iron Fist has his town called Kunlan. And Kunlan is not something that everybody can go to. You need to have a certain privilege to do so, and Iron Fist, being the immortal Iron Fist, has that along with the others. Similarly, what is the situation concerning Shang-Chi's mom is something closer to that. The good part about it is that with having such a mystical city being shown, it just further emphasizes or further confirms that we are going to be seeing the other mystical city or the other mystical cities, such as I've said, Kunlan. Kunlan is really important for Iron Fist. It's really important for the overall Marvel Kung Fu genre. Now, this story that took place between the relationship for Shang-Chi's father, which is Mandarin or Wenwu, and then his mother, this was straight film Hindi. I'll say it in Arabic, marra film Hindi. Because, there's this guy who's having this thug life, if you will, and he just suddenly has a change of heart when he falls in love with a woman. And then he goes back to the dark side when he loses the most beloved being he's ever known. This is not something that I would find the Mandarin getting obsessed about. I understand the fact that this movie, if any one of you is having the expectation that this is going to be something remotely similar to what Marvel has had in the comic books, I can assure you it's not, because the Shang-Chi we find in comics is a totally different badass dude who is not the personification but the representation of a kung fu legend, real life kung fu legend, Bruce Lee. And then what he has been done is he's like the Asian version of James Bond, if you will, who is more involved with global conspiracies, secret societies. And yes, there is an element of magic and mystical aspects of it, because by the end of the day, he is Shang-Chi, and even within the comics, he is the son of Fu Manchu, a kind of a being who can be called and close to an eternal, something that we saw Mandarin become. The Mandarin in comics is really different because he is an antagonist for Iron Man, who is trying to build his own imperial fiefdom, if I can call it, which is against communist China and against whatever the West has to offer. It is purely his own vision for his empire that he wants to established with brutal force, and he has the 10 rings. The good thing is that the 10 rings have now been connected as to what it really is. The bad treatment that we saw in Iron Man 3 by having Sir Ben Kingsley playing the Mandarin, only to realize that he was in fact the imposter, and the guy who was running the show was Aldrich Killian. Now, here they have established the connection that what really transpired, and what was the thing, and what's the status of Aldrich Killian as we speak. But to see a person, I mean, it didn't just justify the role for Mandarin. Because on one side you have this guy who is toppling governments, who is having Obadiah Stane on his payroll. If any one of you has watched Iron Man 1, I mean, he's doing assassinations, all of that. He has a mighty hidden empire, something similar to what the Hand is in Daredevil, Elektra, and then on the other side you have Hydra. And for him to be so much obsessed in reviving or falling in love with a wife in a very Bollywood-esque fashion is something I didn't find really justified for a very good redefinition of a character. Because if this had been given more depth, it would have captivated audiences even more. The other thing was that it's a Marvel movie by the end of the day, and the CGI quality is just amazing. But there was too much of it. I mean, come on. This isn't Kung Fu Panda that we are watching. Yes, there will be an element for this mystical city and all that. The movie was, for me, very much interesting from the first half hour, 45 minutes, because it was involving the fights in San Francisco and then Macau, and the way it's been picturized. Simu Liu is the best guy for this role. Every other cast member is perfectly chosen. The stunts that Simu Liu has done with respect to Kung Fu moves, it's breathtaking, to say the least. Of course, there is some element of CGI support and all that, but to say it, I mean, it's a sigh of relief that the actor who was chosen, the way he has performed and all that. I mean, hats off to the guy. Now, what other thing that is positive and holding something negative in that respect? The positive bit is that this movie is now giving us an indication, first of all, by establishing connection with what has happened in the last 10 years, not only in Marvel Cinematic Universe, whereby we are talking about all the movies that have come by from Marvel Studios, all the TV series that have been aired by Marvel Studios, but also because we need to understand that Shang-Chi and Iron Fist, as well as some other characters like the White Tiger, have been involved in storylines of the deadly hands of Kung Fu. And they have their own miniverse, if I can call it, something which we saw here. A glimpse of it we saw in Iron Fist series on Netflix. So this movie has established the connection. That's number one. Number two is that Shang-Chi is going to be more of a serious character when it comes to the Avengers for the next 10 years. This is another positive development, because Shang-Chi, in my opinion, in the world of comics, has been the most underutilized character. When he made his debut, thanks to Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin, his comics were popular. Not only popular amongst the Asian American readership, but because at that time America and the world was going crazy for thanks to Kung Fu movies by Bruce Lee. And he was imagined by keeping Bruce Lee in mind. If you look at him, if you look at his style, the talking behavior and all that in comics, it's very much reminiscent as if you're watching a Bruce Lee movie. This character is going to be now associated with the Avengers, which has been done recently in comics as well. He was, I think, part of Heroes for Hire as well, which was a very good run back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So this is a very positive development. Should you be watching this movie? Yes, you should be watching this movie, because by the end of the day, this is going to be forming a very strong connection between what has happened in the past 10 years and what is going to come in the next 10 years. The Ten Rings Society, we now know much more about them. And obviously, Shang-Chi's sister is now heading that. So what role is she going to play? And how is it gonna come up in various different series that are going to be broadcasted on Disney Plus? There's a lot that can happen, and a lot that is going to be exciting us. Mind you, that we are now in phase 4. The Skrulls have made their mark. They have penetrated already in various areas of the US government. But if they have penetrated the US government, obviously they might have had penetrated even in villainous secret societies like the Hydra, like the Hand, like Ten Rings, the Legend of the Ten Rings, or the Ten Ring Society. So my verdict is that if you're a comic book reader like myself and you're going to be watching this movie, it's not going to meet your expectations the way, let's say, Infinity War or Captain America Winter Soldier, Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk starring Edward Norton, Avengers 1, or Captain America the First Avenger. These are the movies, or Black Panther, yes. So these are the movies that have met our expectations as comic book readers. It's an entertaining movie that has been burdened with a lot of, comedic puns, if you will. And at the same time, there are some things that were quite unnecessary involved within it. Of course, whatever is being shown in the movie is not going to be similar to what we find in comics. After all, they need to have a life of their own. My only worry is that with all the legal cases that have come up from Steve Ditko's estate and Stan Lee's estate against Disney, I hope it doesn't jeopardize the future projects that are planned for Marvel, whether they are in the form of web series or whether they are in the form of a movie. But Shang-Chi is an important movie. You have to watch it. You have to, if it doesn't meet your expectation because you're a comic book reader and you didn't find it to that level, at least you will now know that what's the relationship between Shang-Chi and the new Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Avengers, and all the other heroes that are there. Because if Marvel relaunches Daredevil, Luke Cage, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, the Netflix Defenders, Shang-Chi has an important role to play. And these characters are more connected with Moon Knight, with Spider-Man. So there's a lot that's out there. Now, one advice I have is that when you go to the cinema to watch this movie, make sure that you watch the post-credit scene. There are 2 scenes. One comes exactly at the end of the movie. The other comes after the very end of the credits. So it's a bit of a exercise that it requires patience, because when you're in the cinema, the cleaners come in and they want to basically close the theater, so you have to wait that long for it, but it's worth it. So this is my spoiler review. And if you guys have any questions, please share it with me in the comments. And if you like this review, please share it within your circle of friends who are into Marvel, who are into Shang-Chi, and let me know of your opinions and all. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.